how are you?
I'm very good. I'm in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Tomorrow we're going to do our last show in Brazil, in a place called Porto Alegre. And then we're going to Buenos Aires, and then we're going to Santiago.
When do you arrive to Santiago?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know, actually.
On Fridays?
End of the week. Do you know what? When you're on tour, you can lose all track of what day it is. And today is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I think it's the weekend anyway. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Neil, let's talk about your show, about your work. I want to talk about your last album, Fundamental.
Yeah.
How has changed the way you see the world since the 80s until now?
Well, I've always been, and we've always been interested in politics to a certain extent. I wouldn't, by the way, call this album just a political album, but it has, what we tried to do with this album was to sort of capture the feeling of the world right now. And we live in a very political time, I think. And also we live in a time where I think, and I'm talking about Britain now, but also in a lot of countries, where I think civil liberties are under attack because of fear of terrorism. And I think this issue is used to bring in, so we have lots of CCTV, surveillance cameras. In Britain they want to bring in ID cards, so a policeman can ask you to prove who you are, and then those ID cards will be linked to a central computer with information about you. I think this is a terrible move for society, and and fear is used to make these changes. And so there are several tracks in our album about fear. In the 80s, which was about Thatcherism in Britain, we did songs about that on our album. Actually, in 1987, there were several songs about Thatcherism. So we've often done songs that have referred to politics. But also, we do it with humour as well, like on this album there's a song called I'm With Stupid, which is sort of about Bush and Blair.
Yes.
But it's done from a position of humour, and I think that's an important way of doing things.
Yeah. Neil, and how does it affect you, this life in all this environment, in this British society which seems so full of paranoia some way?
It makes us angry. That's how it affects us. And I think the last track on our album, there's a song called Integral, which is a very angry song, and that's how it comes out in the album.
Let's talk about Tony Blair and the Iraq war. Today is a new anniversary of it. What do you think about that?
Is it the anniversary of the invasion?
Yes.
How is it? Well, I have mixed feelings about everything. I don't like dictators. I don't like dictators who rule through terror. In Britain, we never used to like General Pinochet for that reason.
Yeah.
Therefore, I didn't like Saddam Hussein. And I think, in theory, it was a good thing to get rid of Saddam Hussein. It makes me angry that people have to live under such a terror regime with his ghastly psychopathic sons and all the rest of it. However, it also makes me angry that having done that, got rid of Saddam Hussein, the post-war planning was very badly done by the Americans, and I suppose by the British, their allies. The Americans, there's all books about it now, the Americans thought they thought the settlement could happen with comparatively few soldiers. I don't think they realised the level of the insurgency. I don't think anyone realised that beforehand, to be honest. And so the chaos in Iraq is tragic, but also I think it could have been avoided, and that makes me really angry. I think the American government is a stupid government. It doesn't understand how other cultures and countries work, and I think it just thought everything was going to be like America immediately, and I think that's naive and stupid of them. I think if Al Gore had become president of America, as indeed he was elected at the end of 2000, I think he would have made the same decision to invade Iraq, but I think maybe they'd have been a bit more, they'd have planned for it. It's funny, because George W. Bush's father, the first President Bush, said when he was asked why they didn't get rid of Saddam Hussein in 1991, he said because it would have involved a neo-colonial occupation of Iraq, and the United States did not have the resources or the planning for that, and therefore he made the right decision at that point. I assumed naively that when this invasion happened, as his own father had said that the American president would have planned for a very extensive post-war settlement in Iraq, which just seems that they didn't do. And I think it's pretty criminal, really, to invade the country and then not have the plan afterwards. And I think when we in Europe, you see, look back at the end of the Second World War, when the Americans had the Marshall Plan, which completely rejuvenated the economies of Europe. And therefore, you have a certain amount of trust because of that. Well, that trust has now, of course, been destroyed.
Perhaps you think war in Iraq was okay in the first time, but it have to stop now.
Well, I mean, they are now finally putting in more troops, aren't they? They've started to do that. I don't know whether it's possible now, though, because for us who don't live in the Middle East, I think the situation is, how can we understand a Shia-Sunni conflict? How can we really understand it? I think it's awfully tragic. It makes me really hate religion, is the fact of the matter. I think if someone thinks that it's a good thing to do, to be a suicide bomber, to go and blow up a lot of children, as someone did in Iraq a few weeks ago, I think it's just disgusting. And I think it really makes me hate religion.
Neil, do you believe in fundamentalism, any kind of it?
No, I don't. I believe in no kind of fundamentalism. I think any kind of fundamentalism, anything that thinks that one ideology provides all the answers, is stupid, because it never does. There are people who thought in the 1930s, for instance, that communism would provide all of the answers. It didn't, though. Human activity is too multifarious and incredible to be pinned down to one ideology. The world has too many climates and tundra to allow for that as well. You know, human activity is incredible, and it can't just be tied down. One ideology is not going to solve anything. And then to use religion, as it's traditionally used, it was used to be used by the Catholics at one time like this, you know, that you suffer now and you get a better world in the next world when you die. Again, I think has always held people back, and I think it's a bad thing, really.
Neil, do you feel you have a social responsibility as a musician and a public person some way?
No, I don't. I don't think, in terms of politics, I know any more than anyone else does. Probably less, actually. I don't know. So I don't feel responsibility. I think one of the functions of a pop musician is to provide the soundtrack for the world that we live in and for the time that we live in. But I don't feel a sense of responsibility, no, because that would be to make myself to be some sort of important figure, and I don't think pop stars and rock stars are important in that sense. I think where pop stars and rock stars have made changes in the past have been probably in terms of sexual morality or something like that. I think we all have an equal responsibility. You know, no matter who you are, I think everyone has a responsibility, and I think there's some tendency nowadays to try and give celebrities a responsibility, and it's a way of shrugging off personal responsibility. I think you and I and people listening to this or whatever have the same responsibility, no greater and no less.
And what do you think about artists like Bono or Michael Stipe from R.E.M. who lead politics in a very different way?
I've always been suspicious of this. Not suspicious, but I'm skeptical about... See, pop music is entertainment. It's passionate entertainment, though, sometimes, of course. People sing about things they feel strongly about. But as I said in the last answer, I think on political issues, we all feel strongly. We should all feel strongly about them. I think it's childish to think that to be influenced by a rock star or a pop star, it would be childish if it worked like that. I don't think it really does anyway, by the way. Mm-hmm. I think a pop star or rock star can publicize an issue, but if you look at the amount of publicity that pop stars have given the environmental cause since the late 80s, and how little they've achieved, it's not really the right way to go about it. We are both lucky enough to live in democratic countries, and the way to do this is through democratic politics.
Neil,
pop stars are there to provide glamour, fun, entertainment.
Yeah.
And we need that as well. It's an essential part of life. They are there also to vocalize our passion as well, and that obviously as a political.
Let's talk about music itself. Many people said Fundamental is your best album in many years, and that is a comeback to your beginning. Do you agree with that?
I think it's a very strong album. Pet Shop Boys, we experiment with our sound. I mean, I think the previous album released was a very, very good album, but we experimented with the sound that was not quite so big and had more guitars on it. I think the reason people say that about this album is because it's a big-sounding album. And in the 80s, the songs we became famous for, like It's a Sin, for instance, always on my mind, what about big-sounding records? And people thought that the Pet Shop Boys as being slightly over the top, and there is a side of us that does that. But it's not it's not just what we do. So I think that's probably one reason why people say that. I think it's an album that really hangs together. We did it all with one producer, Trevor Horn. I think we came up with a good selection of songs. I also think people maybe feel the time is right. Sometimes it's all just to do with the times. The time felt right for the Pet Shop Boys again, a bit. I mean, I think all of our albums, to be honest, I think the songwriting is always pretty strong, and this one is no different. But sometimes maybe this one's more kind of poppy or something as well than the last couple of albums.
Do you think maybe some of your work has been underestimated?
Yes, I do, actually. I mean, actually, the album Nightlife, when it came out, got very, very good reviews, and actually we had hit singles from it and stuff. But I think the album Released, the one before this one, I think it's very underestimated. I think it has some very beautiful songs on it. The idea behind that was to make a very beautiful sort of album, and it wasn't the sort of, so much anyway, the kind of cheeky over-the-top Pet Shop Boys, which is probably the more commercial version of Pet Shop Boys.
Neil, how has been working for more than 25 years with Chris Lowe? How have you changed in this time as musicians and persons?
Well, we've got much more experience as musicians. You know, you learn about songwriting and making records. You know, when you start, you have a kind of fantastic naivety, which is actually quite a powerful thing. There's something quite good about not knowing too much about making music, because you do something more unpredictable, I think. Now we know much more about it. We still write in the same sort of way. We still write in the studio together. We still have sort of funny ideas and serious ideas. I mean, that's the core of what we do as a songwriting. It's what we really love doing. We're quite passionate about that. And also, it's what keeps the Pet Shop Boys together. I mean, it's a lot of fun doing that. I think if we didn't enjoy what we do, we would give it up. But we love doing it. And that's why we're still here.
Do you feel as survivors of the 80s, since you have been able to make new things, just a few bands have been able to do the same as Depeche Mode, for example?
I think that's down to songwriting. I think from any era. I mean, we came along quite a long time. Depeche Mode were making records, releasing records for at least 5 years before we released a record, you know. So they were part of that early generation of the 80s, and they've kept it going because they darkened their sound, and Martin Gore's a very good songwriter. The Pet Shop Boys, I think we are here because of the songwriting, and also because I guess we're a unique pop group. You know, there's no one makes records quite like us, whereas a lot of music nowadays is very generic, and you can't tell the difference between it. If
you could start again, what will you do different? Will you still make pop dance and music as you have done?
Yes, because I still think dance music is the kind of music that changes everything. I don't think it's rock. I still think rock music doesn't really change anything. I think dance music is what brings new kinds of music in. So yes.
You don't want rock music?
I like rock music. We've even made rock music occasionally, but I think dance music and electronic music is the radical music.
What do you think when people talk about Pet Shop Boys as intelligent pop? Do you laugh at it?
No, I agree with them. That's what we do.
Yeah?
We do pop music, you know, with intelligence. And actually, there's not that much of it about at the moment.
but it's a way to say pop is silly.
We're not afraid to be silly either, though. I mean, I like silliness. I like banality sometimes if it's done well. If it's just euphoric and great, you know, I can like it. I often think that kind of music is underrated as well because it's pure inspiration often, that kind of music. Just a sort of an expression of joy. It's quite a difficult thing to write. It's much easier to write something sort of complicated and serious, actually.
Neil, you have been mentioned as a great influence for a lot of people like Madonna or Robbie Williams. What do you think about that?
I think it's very flattering. It was nice of Madonna to say that she was mentioned other people she was influenced by. And Robbie Williams, you know, writes lyrics from a very sort of English perspective, like the Pet Shop Boys do. And he's always said that about us. And I can sort of see it because, like us, he's not just pop music. He brings in elements from sort of like show business almost, like we bring elements from theatre. You know, he doesn't just do the regular pop thing. He's prepared, like he suddenly does a Frank Sinatra album or something like that, you know. And I think yes, there's a similarity with us. Of course, we just work together. We have this single at the moment called Cheese Madonna, where which brings together Robbie Williams, the Pet Shop Boys, and Madonna all in one record.
And do you still write songs for other artists with them?
We haven't for a while, but yeah, we probably would do. Occasionally we get asked to do things like that. We've done remixes recently. We did a remix for Madonna a year or so ago of her song called Sorry. The most recent one we did was The Killers' latest single, Read My Mind. We did a dance remix. Mm-hmm. And I quite like that in those, because we do a dance mix, but also I put extra vocals on, so I turn it into a duet. So on The Killers one, I'm singing with Brandon Flowers, which I quite like, or on the Madonna one, I was singing with Madonna. And actually, she kept my vocals. She put my vocals into her last tour. I don't know if you know.
Yes.
Suddenly, one part of the show, I started singing,
Okay.
Which is quite a funny experience. To be sitting at Wembley Arena watching Madonna and listening to myself singing.
And what kind of music do you listen now? What do you like?
I've liked, some of the new kind of pop rock sort of bands, like I just mentioned, The Killers, and I quite like the Arctic Monkeys. I tend to listen to a lot of electronic music, though, what I really, really like, and I listen to probably quite obscure electronic music. There's a guy at the moment I like called Johann Johansson. I like the Compact label from Germany, which is based in Cologne. I mean, they put out compilations which are really, really good. We got some of their artists, a guy called Dettinger, actually, to remix one of our tracks. But there's a lot of good German electronic artists at the moment, I think. Michael Mayer, very good. I also listen to classical music. Yeah. And I was thinking in Pet Shop Boys you can hear the influence of classical music as well.
Let's talk about Chile. What do you know about this country? Do you know Pinochet is dead and we have now a woman as a president?
I know both of those things, yes.
Yes, and what do you think about that?
Chile, Pinochet's death got a lot of publicity in Britain. I think I would like to spend more time in Chile. I've only ever been there for 2 or 3 days before, and on this visit we're just coming for a couple of days in between Argentina and then going on to New Zealand. Sometime I'd like to spend more time there, because I think it's an interesting country. I always remember them telling us, which fascinated us, that you can go to the beach in the morning and then go skiing in the afternoon. Is that true?
Yes,
but that completely fascinates us. Not that I want to go skiing particularly, but I just like the idea that you drive to the climate.
But not in Santiago.
Not in Santiago.
Not in Santiago.
What I'm interested in seeing Santiago is that we haven't been there since 1994, and that wasn't long after Pinochet's government ended and democracy came back in. And I'd be very interested to see now the changes in society in Chile. I won't mention Spain because it reminds me a bit of Spain when Franco died, and then Spanish society became very creative and interesting when democracy came back. And I wonder if it's something similar in Chile.
Well, things have changed since 1994 in Chile. People is not very happy now.
Really?
No.
Because of the economy?
Not because of the economy, because of the transport public, for example. We have changed that, and people is suffering from that cause. People travels in a very bad situation, make life very difficult for workers.
Yes.
Mainly.
Oh. From public transport?
Exactly.
Well, public transport is a big issue around the world because there's too many cars. That's the problem. But It's one of those things, everyone waffles on about the environment, but no one really deals with that issue.
Yeah. Well, Neil, in Chile, Pet Shop Boys is an icon for the gay community.
Yeah.
Do you know that? What do you think about that?
Well, Pet Shop Boys have a big gay audience everywhere, and I think it's a wonderful thing. Yes, I feel very proud of it everywhere. It's, I guess a lot of gay people like to go out and go dancing, but I think probably the reason for that we have a large gay audience is because the lyrics of our songs are written by a gay man, and therefore maybe they can relate to them. At the same time, as I've often said before, I didn't really like the term gay icon because I think it's used to marginalise you. I think if someone is described as a gay icon, people often think it means that only gay people are going to like your music, and I don't like that because we make music for everyone. But I'm very happy that we have a big gay audience, but we have a sort of surprisingly wide audience, which is one of the good things, in terms of age and different kinds of people. And it's always interesting when we play in America, we get different audiences. It's quite interesting. Like in Texas, we always get a lot of Vietnamese people come and see us because a lot of Vietnamese moved out of the war, and so we have this audience composed of gay men, Vietnamese people, regular rock fans, people who are into 80s music, a few college kids. I like the whole combination of our audience.
Okay. What can we expect from your show in Chile? Which songs will you play, and visually, how will be the show?
Well, the show has got songs from right across our career, from every album. So you've got a lot of big hits. Well, I mean, we've written so many songs over the years. It was quite difficult to pare it down. But there are songs from right across the whole thing. I don't think you'll be disappointed by which songs we play. And the staging is very interesting. It's done with always with our shows. It's done with someone from the theatre, a theatre designer, and it looks very beautiful. It's a sort of multimedia show. We call it an evening of electronic entertainment.
You know, the last great concert we had in Chile was Roger Waters' one, last week.
It was who, sorry?
Roger Waters, Pink Floyd.
Ah, Roger Waters. Ah,
Yeah.
yes. No, he's touring, I see, at the moment.
Yeah.
And he did the whole of the Wall. Was it the Wall he did?
No, Dark Side of
Dark
the
Side of
Moon.
the Moon. Dark Side of the Moon, of course, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, well, he's an amazing person.
Do you like Pink Floyd?
Chris is the Pink Floyd fan in the Pet Shop Boys. Yeah, I quite like them. I didn't really pay that much attention to them when I was growing up. I really liked them at the beginning, with stuff like See Emily Play, when Syd Barrett was in them. That's why I really liked Pink Floyd.
How much time will you keep working as Pet Shop Boys? This is the last question. Have you ever considered the retirement?
Retirement?
No, I hope no. Obviously.
No, we don't think about retiring. The Pet Shop Boys are forever. I guess until we stop. We're not thinking about that. Actually, the funny thing about it is we don't really think very far ahead. We think about what we're doing, maybe what the next thing might be, and that's about it. And somehow we're still here. So I think if the time came when we really didn't enjoy what we were doing, we would stop it. But at the moment, I think we have a lot of creative energy, and we're enjoying what we're doing.
Okay. Well, Neil, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and see you at the weekend.
See you at the
We
weekend.
come on Saturday, by the way.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.